What is up, y'all? Philly Fly Show checking in here, kicking in at Railway Production Studios, and this is take number 17. No, I'm just kidding. I have just totally been a little dysfunctional this morning, or not this morning, this afternoon, putting this all together. And now that I've recorded this like 3 times and realized screw-ups and had to come back and fix them, we're going to do a quick review of UFC Fight Night, Aljamain Sterling and Yusuf Zalal last week. It was a horrible week for the Philly Fly Show. We went 5 for 13. I'm not very happy about it. But I will shout out Renee Barcelos for pulling that plus 144 pick on us. Ryan Spann looked really good too. That was an underdog pick. But and then shout out to the guy I do not like in Aljamain Sterling. I do not see him as a title fighter. I do not know what he keeps talking about after winning. This dude needs to take out 1 through 4, not number 7, to make a title fight. So it's very upsetting to hear him keep talking and running his mouth because I cannot stand the guy. And I picked against him last week and he showed me up. So we're going to move on though. This is UFC Fight Night. Della Maddalena versus Carlos Prates. Now this is a horrible start time. We got starting at 3 a.m. Central Time for prelims, and then main card will start at 6 a.m. Central Time. That just sucks. You have to wake up early and watch fights. Me, I'll be probably just going to bed early and waking up at 3 a.m. and starting my day and going the long way about it. Now, we have a pretty decent card put together for one that's in Perth. A lot of Aussie fighters obviously fighting. So let's just jump right into it. I'm going to have a quick show this week because this is very frustrating for my 13th take. Alright, it's a 13-leg matchup here. We got match leg number 13. We'll start in the lightweight division. We got Donmar Fan versus Cody Steele. Donmar is a plus 168 underdog, and Cody Steele's a negative 210 favorite. Look, man, Donmar's 5-0 in his last 5, 1-0 in the UFC. Coming on a 5-fight win streak. His last loss was the Quillen Skull Kid, who we're going to see fight later tonight, and that's not a bad loss to have on your record. So dude's got a good streak going. His counterpart in Cody Steele's 4-1 in his last 5, 0-1 in his UFC. He is got a decision loss coming off Rong Zhu. Now that's not a bad guy to lose to, but at the time, Rong Zhu wasn't having his up-and-coming streak that he's going through right now. So Cody Steele needs to get back in there if he wants to stay as a good prospect in the UFC. I don't see that happening. I see Donmar getting a good win here and taking that plus 168 and cashing it to the bank. 1 out of 5 on the conference level, getting his hand raised. It's a good matchup between these two. Matchup number 12 is a welterweight bout between Jonathan Mizclef and Themba Gorimbo. Now Themba is a plus 198 underdog. Jonathan is a negative 250 favorite. I have dogged Jonathan in his first 2 fights that I watched of his, and I did not think he was going to win. He ends up winning those fights. It's all right. It's one of those things where you just got to be showing up by a fighter to pick him. Now Themba, on the other hand, I was on his bandwagon, and now I'm off. I do not know if this is the same guy that came into the UFC as the prospect. If he's putting in the work, he needs to get back in the win column for me to see that. And fighting a guy like Mizclef is not a good matchup for him. Mizclef is 4-1 in his last 5, 2-0 in the UFC, and coming off a win off Oban Elliott, the Welsh gangster. That is not a bad. That's not a bad win. That's a good win there. He's got a 4-fight win streak coming into the UFC. Well, with his 2 UFC fights. So I really like Mizclef right there. And Themba, 3-2 in his last 5, 4-3 in the UFC, and coming off a 2-loss streak, or on a 2-loss streak. So, does he go to 3? Yes, he does. Jonathan Mizclef's going to get a win on Saturday morning. Be very happy about that and cash that 250 to the bank. 1 out of 5 though on the confidence level that Mizclef can actually get a win because Themba is a gangster when he actually shows up. Now, match like number 11 here is a middleweight bout between Ben Johnson and Wes Schultz. Wes Schultz is a plus 128 underdog. Ben Johnson, negative 158 favorite. Ben is making his UFC debut. He's 4-1 in his last 5. He got a 5-1 record, so pretty much should just put that in there instead of his last 5. He's on a 4-fight win streak coming into the UFC, so it's a good streak coming behind him, and probably some good experience coming behind it too. Jeez, my my brain just went foggy there. West has 3-2 in his last 5, 0-1 in the UFC, coming off a KO loss. It's not a good way to start your UFC career, but hey, look at what a couple weeks ago, dude was 0-3 in his career, 2.5 years in, finally gets a win, so it can happen. I'm picking Ben Johnson to get this win, though. Take that number 158 and cash it to the bank again. 1 out of 5, though, on the confidence level leaking his hand raise. The first 3 fights are not very confident in this one, but this next one is. It's a bantamweight fight between. It's match like number 10. It's a bantamweight fight between Colby Thickness and Vince Morales. Morales a plus 108 underdog. Colby a negative 132 favorite. Look, man, just because he's the favorite doesn't mean he's that good of a favorite, but he's got a good skill set behind him. Vince Morales is pretty good too, but I just don't see how they got this so close. I feel like the odds makers would have this way different. Now, Colby is 4-1 in his last 5, 1-1 in the UFC, coming off a decision win. His counterpart in Vince Morales, 2-3 in his last 5, 0-3 in the UFC, and on a 3-fight lose streak. I just think Colby Thickness is going to be too game for him, and he's too well-rounded to lose this fight. Vince just does not look like he belongs in the UFC, and Colby's going to show that on Saturday. So 3 out of 5 on the confidence level that he can get his hand raised. Now, match like number 9 is a middleweight bout between Jacob Malkoun and Gerald Meerschaert. Meerschaert's a plus 710 underdog. Malkoun negative 1,200 favorite. I feel like Jacob Malkoun did not fight at middleweight. I feel like he was at a different weight class, the heavier weight class. So it's weird to see this unless I'm just thinking of somebody else and getting this mixed up. Matchup number 9 here. So Malkoun is 3-2 in his last 5, 5-3 in the UFC, and on a 2-fight win streak. His counterpart in Gerald is 1-5 in his last 5, 12-13 in the UFC, and on a 4-fight lose streak. Yeah, take Jacob Malkoun all day. Negative 1,200 though. Odds just suck to bet on. Gerald Meerschaert, the only way he wins is if he gets a lucky submission, and I don't see that happening. 3 out of 5 on the confidence level. Jacob Malkoun can get his hand raised after the fight. Alright. Now, we have a light heavyweight bout between Junior Tafa and Kevin Christian. Kevin Christian is a plus 164 underdog. Junior Tafa, negative 205 favorite. Back at light heavyweight. He looks better, Junior does, at light heavyweight than he does at heavyweight. But he still doesn't have a win under his belt in that division. So he's got a tough counterpart there. Junior is 1-4 in his last 5, 2-5 in the UFC, and on a 2-fight lose streak, even though he's back to light heavyweight. So he's gotta get a win there. But his counterpart in Kevin Christensen's 4-1 in his last 5. He's 0-1 in the UFC. He's coming off a submission loss. Yeah, man, I see Kevin winning that fight. I'm not going to pick a Junior Tafa fight. I've watched that guy fight so many times, and I just don't see even how he got in the UFC. He doesn't have the talent, really. Besides, he'll get into a brawl and get himself knocked out. But Kevin Christian's going to win that fight. Take that plus 164 and bring that to the bank. All right. Now, this next bout is a feature prelim bout, and I'm super happy to see this kid get back in there. We got Cam Roston versus Robert Berzak. Now, it's a middleweight bout. Cam is negative 184. Robert's a plus 148 underdog. Looking here, Cam is 5-0 in his last 5, 2-0 in the UFC. He has 2 KO losses in the UFC, or KO wins in the UFC, not KO losses. He's got 2 KO wins on there, and he's just looked the part. Great to see him back in there. His counterpart is 4-1 in his last 5, 1-1 in the UFC, and coming off a KO win off Brad Tavares, which was not that long ago. So Robert's got game. He's well-rounded, but Cam's hands are just nasty. So I'm picking Cam here. I like that negative 184, and against a guy like Robert, who he's not as good of a striker. I like Cam's odds there, so take that, cash to the bank. 3 out of 5 on the confidence level. He can get his hand raised. Jump to the main card here. We get matchup number 6, Tai Tuivasa versus Louis Sutherland in a heavyweight bout. Tai Tuivasa negative 205 favorite versus Louis plus 158. This is a short notice fight for Louis. Tai's been in camp fighting for who is he supposed to fight, man? Can't remember who he was supposed to fight off the top of my head, but that fight fell through like a week and a half ago. I didn't think they were going to get him a fight, and they did. So Tai is, though, 0-5 in his last 5. He's on a 6-fight losing streak, and he's 8-9 in the UFC. His counterpart, Louis Southern's 3-2 in his last 5, 0-2 in the UFC on a 2-fight lose streak. Louis does not look like he's got the part to be in here. And Ty, if he gets a win on Saturday, I don't know how he stays fighting in the UFC. I just don't see it. I feel like this is his last fight, and I just let him go out with a bang against somebody. If it happens, shout out to him. If he decides to stay, he can do whatever he wants, but he just doesn't look like he's got it to fight the heavyweights anymore. But he gets a win against a guy like Louis Sutherland on Saturday. 3 out of 5 on the confidence level. He can get his hand raised. Match like number 5 stays in the heavyweight division. We get Shamil Gaziev versus Brando Persic. Now, Persic's a negative 146 favorite, whereas Gaziev is a plus 114 underdog. Gaziev is the 14th ranked heavyweight in the world, but I don't see how that's happening. I know Ty Tuivasa is on a 6-fight lose streak, but you could have left him maybe in the rankings over that guy. He's got like one really good win. Yeah, he's got like one good win. All right, Gaziev though he is 3-2 in his last 5. He's got a 3-2 UFC record. He's coming off a KO loss to Wooly Acostas Cortez, otherwise Salsa Boy. His counterpart is 4-1 his last 5, 2-0 in the UFC, and on a 4-fight win streak. Persic is one of these big up-and-coming guys from the Aussies. He's got hands. He can do all the good stuff. His counterpart's just well-rounded, but not a very good striker. He's just it's heavyweights. Anyone can go to sleep, but Persic's going to get that win and show why he is a top prospect in the UFC. 3 out of 5 on the comp slot. Persic can get his hand raised. Now, jump to the flyweight division after the heavyweight division. We get matchup number 3, the 11th ranked Tim Elliott versus the 12th ranked Steve Astro Boy Ercik. Now, Astro Boy is a negative 265 favorite compared to his counterpart, and Tim Elliott is a plus 200. Tim is 4-1 in his last 5, which is crazy. 8-10 in the UFC and on a 2-fight win streak. His counterpart, Steve Ercik, is not on that type of streak. He is 2-3 in his last 5, 4-3 in the UFC, and coming off a decision win off of Ode Osborne. That's a good win, but Steve Astro Boy Ercik has still got it. I just think he got moved up the rankings way too fast and got a title fight way too fast. Should have took him a little more time. And I think his skill set would have rounded out a little better. Steve Astro Boy Ercik is not losing this fight, but I've said that too many times on a Tim Elliott fight, and Tim Elliott showed me up. He is super unorthodox, super awkward to fight, but I feel like Steve Ercik's just too well-rounded with his feet and his hands to fall like that. Now, when it comes to a grappling match, Tim's got the advantage there. So if this gets to the ground, not pretty for Astro Boy. It stays on the feet. Astro Boy's got a good chance of winning and getting a finish there. 3 out of 5 on the confidence level that Astro Boy can get that hand raised. Co-main event of the evening, we got the 12th ranked Beneil Dariush versus Quillen Sulkid. Quillen is negative 520 favorite, whereas Beneil is a plus 350 underdog. Now, Beneil is 2-3 in his last 5 and a 17-7-1 UFC record, coming off a KO loss to Benoit Saint Denis. He got messed up, and I have said this before, Beneil's jaw just does not hold up over the fight. So it's not a good matchup against a guy like Quillen Sulkid. If you do not know who he is 5-0 in his last 5, 4-0 in the UFC on an 11-fight win streak. And the kid has these killer hands that nobody talked about. All they talked about was how good his wrestling and his wrestling defense is, which it is. I'm not dogging that at all, but nobody talked about this guy's hands, and dude has just lit every mother trucker up that he's just fought. There's no way Quillen loses. Beneil's weakness is striking and taking strikes, and you're going to put him up against Quillen Sulkid. Quillen's taking that 12th ranking and coming into the UFC flying hot. Get that dude into the title matches, because he's got it. He's literally one of the next title contenders. If you couldn't tell, Quillen's going to get the win. 3 out of 5 on the conference level. He can get his hand raised. Now, I skipped match like number 4, and I knew this was going to happen, and why I wanted to rewrite this whole thing out, but that would have took way too much time. that was match leg number 3. We're going to jock back. They moved match leg number 4 from match leg 14 because another fight dropped off. So they moved this one in there. It's a BS fight anyways. It's a featherweight bout between Marwan Rahiki. He's a negative 650 favorite. And Ollie Schmidt, who's a plus 440 underdog. Rahiki's a 5-0 in his last 5, an 8-0 fighter, and 1-0 in the UFC. Fighting a guy who's making his UFC debut, making his UFC debut. He's got a 4-2 record on a 3-fight win streak. Rahiki's winning that fight. That guy is a very good prospect. I did not know almost Jack Schmid, how he used his name. Didn't know Schmid about Schmid, so Schmid's not winning that fight. Rahiki's winning that fight, and we're moving on because that was stupid. That was just stupid how they had to move the fight last minute. Yesterday that fight wasn't on there. Today that fight's on there. Just BS. Yesterday I looked at, or 2 days ago I put together the odds and the money lines for here, and that fight wasn't even on there to look at, and now it's just dumb stuff from the UFC. Dumb last minute decision that didn't need to be on there. And then we get to the main event of the evening, boys and girls. That's what we're here for. JDM, Della, Maddalena, number 1 ranked welterweight versus the 5th ranked welterweight, and the badass fighter in Carlos Prates, and he's a negative 122 favorite. Della, Maddalena, negative 104. It's essentially a pick 'em. Do what you want there. Yo, Jack is 4-1 in his last 5, 8-1 in the UFC. He had a crazy 9 or 10 fight win streak or something like that. So some 17 fight win streak, or he had some coming into the fight before he fought Islam when he had the title, and that came to an end because of the Islam fight. Islam just was that good and just showed Jack up. Carlos Prates is 4-1 in his last 5, 6-1 in the UFC. His only loss is coming to Ian Machado Gary, and this dude has 2 KOs over Jeff Neal and Leon Edwards. Those are very crazy good KOs. Nobody respects Carlos Prates' power. They all act like because they've taken strikes from other dudes that they can take strikes from Carlos. That is not the case. Jack is so well-rounded. Besides Islam just dominating him, nobody has dominated Jack wrestling-wise. So, Carlos, when he lost the fight against Ian Machado Gary, Ian used his wrestling way too good, and the strikes were just well-timed. Put Carlos off, and Carlos was not ready for a 5-round fight that night either. So, him getting back in there and getting a 5-round fight is good, but I do not see this going 5 rounds unless Della, Maddalena uses wrestling. Now, because Jack got showed up by Islam, that could mean Jack worked on his wrestling, which could mean we could have a totally different game plan coming into this fight for Jack. And I think that's the only way Jack wins. If this stand and bang stuff happens, yes, Jack's very good at standing and fighting, but that power in Carlos Prates is just something that is unseen in the welterweight division so far. And I just think it's going to be too much. I think Jack's going to get in his own head and think he can stand in there and fight with Carlos, and it's just going to be a nasty ending. Carlos going to get the win. I'm pretty confident on 3 out of 5, but JDM is a good fighter, and I just don't want to dog the guy because of how good he is. So we'll see if he put in the work or if that loss really got to him, and it's going to take some time to get back in there. Cash that stuff to the bank. Watch the Joe Money Show. It's all coming out soon. I'll see y'all next week. I'm glad I had a quick podcast after having a rough start to this one. See y'all next week. It'll be better put together because UFC's not going to change last minute on me like they did in the Perth. Peace out, y'all.